The Candidate. Chapter 1. Whispers in the cornfield. The night Evan Langley disappeared, the stars blinked unnaturally. The cornfields behind his family's rural Iowa home swayed without wind, the long stalks hissing like they were whispering secrets. 11-year-old Evan sat near the edge of the tall rose, roasting a marshmallow over a tiny campfire. His father had set up the tent earlier and returned inside, just 100 yards away, but far enough that Evan felt proud to be alone. The fire crackled, crickets chirped, then silence. Not the usual hush of the countryside. This was a pressurized silence, like the world had exhaled and forgotten how to breathe. Evan glanced up from his stick, half-burnt marshmallow turning black. The sky wasn't black anymore, it was deep violet, shimmering with thin, pale lines tracing across the stars like veins. He stood slowly. From behind the cornstalks, something moved. Not a deer, not an animal, something tall. The field split open before him, not physically, but as if the air itself had parted like curtains. A soft hum poured through. His eyes widened. The fire behind him extinguished in a pop of sparks. Evan's mouth opened to scream. He didn't. He smiled. Then, he walked forward and vanished into the field. They found him 3 hours later. Sheriff Dale Homan organized a search. Within 30 minutes of the parents' panicked call, flashlights sliced through the rows of corn. Bloodhounds sniffed but circled in confusion. Then, at 2:13 a.m., a deputy's flashlight caught a small figure curled near the base of a dead tree. Evan, naked, no scratches, no bruises, eyes wide open and smiling. His mother screamed when she saw him. His father dropped to his knees, but Evan didn't respond, not to their voices, not to the medics. He blinked slowly, then spoke, his voice calm. "They're not done yet," he said. "They're coming back. Doctors found nothing wrong. No head trauma, no drugs in his system. Clean bill of health." But Evan didn't sleep for 3 nights. When he did, he spoke in a language one recognized, throaty syllables, ancient and fluid. And every time he awoke, he cried for 10 minutes straight, not in fear, in loss. Chapter 2. The Blank Space. The room was soft, white, and filled with lies. Dr. Amelia Sloan smiled gently at Evan. From across the therapy room, she sat with her hands folded, a notebook on her lap. A butterfly mobile hung above them, spinning lazily in the sunlight. Evan ignored it. He stared at the floor. "How do you feel today, Evan?" she asked. He blinked slowly, then looked up. "Did you ever meet a person with no name?" She paused. "What do you mean?" "They don't call each other names. They sing, like whales, but prettier." His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reciting something he didn't understand. Dr. Sloan exchanged a glance with the observing nurse behind the two-way mirror. Evan's parents sat on the other side of that glass, fidgeting in silence. His mother gripped her necklace until her knuckles went white. His father stared straight ahead. The boy they brought in wasn't the boy who came out of that field. They ran tests, EEGs, MRIs, DNA mapping. Nothing out of place. No seizures, no psychological disorders. His IQ jumped by 27 points in 3 weeks, but his social responses flatlined. He didn't laugh anymore. He didn't ask to go outside. He drew. Every day, 4 hours. Evan scribbled obsessively in a blank notebook, swirling lines that spiraled out into intricate geometric shapes, complex and almost architectural, the kind of patterns computers would struggle to replicate. One image repeated, a triangle inside a circle, with 12 symbols along the edge. None matched any known language, but something about them made the stuff uneasy. Dr. Sloan submitted it to a linguist at MIT. The email bounced back. "This is a security flagged pattern. Do not share this again." She never told the parents. At home, the oddities grew worse. The hallway light would turn on at 3:07 a.m. every night. No one was awake. Evan's mother heard whispering through the baby monitor, though Evan was 11. She started using it again out of fear. The voices weren't his, and sometimes, when she opened his bedroom door, he'd be sitting up in bed, smiling at the wall. "Who are you talking to?" she'd ask. He'd look at her with those unblinking eyes and whisper, "The ones from above." Chapter 3. Lights in the hallway. The first time the shadows moved, It was subtle. A coat rack leaned slightly, though no wind came through. The fridge door clicked open, while no one was near it, and then the hallway light began to strobe faintly on its own. At 3:07 a.m. again, Evan's father, Tom, unscrewed the hallway bulb and replaced it. It didn't help. The light stayed on. He cut the power to the breaker. It stayed on. Tom stood frozen in the dark silence of the hallway, staring at a glowing bulb no longer connected to anything. Behind him, something brushed past. A cool breeze. A breath without lungs. He turned. No one. Then he heard the whisper. Not yours anymore. Security cameras were installed. Motion sensors. Night vision. Every precaution. The next night, Evan's mother screamed from the living room. She'd been reviewing the footage. In one clip, Evan walked down the hallway at 3:06 a.m., but his reflection in the mirror didn't follow. It stood still, smiling directly into the camera. It stayed there until Evan disappeared from view. The tape corrupted immediately after. They brought the footage to the sheriff. He told them it was tampered with. He had no interest in a ghost story. But 2 days later, an unmarked black SUV showed up outside the Langley house. A man in a grey suit stepped out, tall, thin, eyes like polished coal. He introduced himself as Agent Keller, and from that moment on, everything changes. Chapter 4. The Visitor. Evan stood in the middle of the yard barefoot, his eyes fixed on the sky. It was just after midnight, the grass wet with dew, the air unusually warm for October. Crickets had gone silent again. The clouds overhead formed a ring perfect, symmetrical, like the eye of a storm. Yet there was no storm. Inside, Tom and Rachel Langley watched through the window, paralyzed by uncertainty. They hadn't asked Evan to come inside anymore. They learned it was better to let it pass. Sometimes he stood there 4 hours, but this time, Rachel reached for the doorknob and froze. Evan tilted his head upward, his arms extended slowly at his sides. Then he began to hum, low, guttural, not a tune, a frequency. The glass in the windows vibrated. The power flickered. Every dog within a 2-mile radius began barking in sync. A horrid, rhythmic chaos. Tom yanked the door open and sprinted outside. Evan, the boy, turned and smiled, not his own smile. His mouth curled upward too far. The muscles in his face pulled unnaturally. His eyes rolled back, and a deep, inhuman voice poured from him layered with echoes. He is not yours. Tom stumbled backward, heart hammering. Evan collapsed to the grass, unconscious. When they rushed him to the hospital, the doctor said he was fine. No trauma, no signs of epilepsy. But he wouldn't wake up for 3 full days. When he did, he said something that haunted Rachel for the rest of her life. Chapter 5. They're watching us. Agent Keller had a face you didn't remember after he left the room. That's how he liked it. He didn't flash a badge. He didn't say what branch of government he worked for. But when he sat in the Langley's kitchen with a black coffee and a worn-out manila folder, they listened. This isn't the first, he said. We've been tracking similar cases since 1972. Rachel's fingers trembled around her mug. You're saying this has happened before? Not often, Keller said, but always the same pattern: rural, isolated, pre-adolescence, temporary disappearance, unexplainable change in behavior, intellect, and biology, followed by phenomena, shadows, speech irregularities, geometric fixation. Tom raised an eyebrow. Geometric. Keller slid a photo across the table. It was a drawing, same triangle in circle with 12 symbols just like Evan's. This was recovered from a similar case in 1986, Mexico. That boy vanished 6 days after this was drawn. Never found. Tom stared. What do they want? Keller paused. They're studying him. Rachel paled. What do you mean? He's been altered. Tuned to a different frequency. He's a transmitter now. And from what we've seen before, they always come back for what's theirs. That night, a mark appeared on Evan's back. A raised circle. Perfectly symmetrical. Glowing faintly when the lights were off. Chapter 6. Facility 39. They told the Langley family they had 2 options: stay and risk exposure. A word Keller emphasized without explaining, or take Evan to a secured research facility where he'd be monitored around the clock. They resisted at first. But after a second voice incident, this time in a church during Sunday service, when Evan began chanting during communion, there wasn't a choice left to make. Facility 39 was deep beneath the Utah desert, buried under layers of concrete and armed security, masked by an abandoned mine on satellite images. It didn't exist officially. No records, no names, just the black budget. The moment Evan stepped inside, the lights flickered, every sensor spiked, EMF readings went off the charts. A team of 5 neuroscientists, 2 linguists, and a quantum physicist were brought in. The government spared no expense. Over the next few weeks, they discovered Evan's brain produced signals that weren't just normal, they were extraterrestrial. He spoke again in the sleep. This time, not just a chant but a warning. If you keep him, the walls will break. We will burn your bones in light. The scientists laughed, until the next morning, when 3 of them were found in their quarters, bleeding from the eyes. One had scrawled a single phrase on the mirror in his own blood. "He's a door."